Chapter 1. The Summoning. The child's scream tore through the valley like a blade through silk. Sari stumbled on the frost-hardened path, her basket of herbs scattering across the ground. Rosemary and valerian rolled into the darkness beyond her lantern's reach. The sound came again, not quite human, not quite animal, a wail that seemed to hollow out the night itself. She should have run. Every instinct bred into her by 18 years in these Welsh borderlands screamed at her to flee back toward the village, toward warmth and locked doors and the familiar weight of her grandmother's warnings. Never answer a cry in the dark. Never follow music you cannot name. But Sari had spent 3 years tending the dying, sitting vigil beside fever-bright children whose mothers wept themselves empty. She knew the particular agony in that sound. She knew suffering when it called to her. Her fingers found the iron cross at her throat cold, reassuring, and she gathered her skirts, leaving the scattered herbs to the frost. The lantern swung wild shadows across bare birch trees as she climbed toward the source of the crying. The path narrowed, became treacherous with ice. Above her, the ruins of Castel Aderin rose against the stars like broken teeth. No one had lived in the old fortress for 2 centuries. The village elders forbade even speaking its name after dark. The screaming stopped. Silence crashed down so completely that Sari's own heartbeat seemed obscenely loud. She paused at the edge of the castle's outer courtyard, breathing mist into the November air. Moonlight silvered the crumbling walls, turning them ghostly and strange. A door stood open, a massive oak portal that should have been sealed, locked, forgotten. Warm light spilled from within. Candlelight, dozens of candles, their glow almost amber against the darkness. "Please." The voice was male, deep, worn thin by something that might have been exhaustion or despair. "Please, if you can hear him, if you can't," followed his call, "please help us." Sari's hand tightened on the lantern. Every story her grandmother had whispered came rushing back. The immortal lord who had stolen the castle from Welsh princes centuries ago, the cursed bloodline that fed on the living, the eternal hunger that could never be sated. Tales to frighten children, she had always thought. Superstition wrapped around historical truth like ivy around stone. But the desperation in that voice was real. She stepped through the threshold. The great hall swallowed her lantern light whole. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadow 30 feet above. Tapestries hung in tatters along walls that might once have been magnificent. But the candles, hundreds of them, burned in chandeliers and sconces and candelabras scattered across the floor in strange, careful patterns, as though someone had tried to hold back the darkness through sheer stubborn will. At the hall's center, a man knelt beside a small figure wrapped in blankets. The child could not have been more than 7 years old. His face was beautiful in the way of Renaissance paintings, perfect, unmarred, almost inhuman in its symmetry. But his eyes were ancient, old and terrible and shimmering with tears that caught the candlelight like crystal. "You came?" The kneeling man rose slowly, as though afraid any sudden movement might send her fleeing. "I did not think. We have called for so long, but no one answers anymore." He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in clothing that belonged to no era she could name. A white shirt open at the throat, dark breeches, boots that reached his knees. His face was angular, carved by time and sorrow into something that transcended mere handsomeness. Silver threaded through black hair that fell past his shoulders. When he moved like water, like wind, like nothing that walked beneath the sun. His eyes were the color of storm clouds before lightning. "Who are you?" Sari's voice came out steadier than she felt. "What is this?" "My name is Emrys." He spoke her language with an accent she could not place. Something older than Welsh, older than English, ancient as the stones themselves. "This is my son, Idris. He has not slept in 100 years." The child whimpered, a sound so raw it scraped against Sari's spine. His small hands clutched at the blankets, trembling, and she saw God help her. She saw that his fingernails were torn and bloody, as though he had been clawing at something for decades. "That's impossible." But even as she said it, she knew it was not. Knew it with the same certainty that told her when death was near, when no herb or prayer would turn aside the inevitable. "I am cursed," Emrys said simply. "We are cursed. My kind does not sleep as yours does, but my son." Something broke in him a century ago. He cannot rest, cannot find peace. The waking torments him. Every moment another small eternity of exhaustion he cannot escape. Sari took one step forward, then another. The candle flames bent toward her as she passed, drawn by her living warmth. Up close, she could see the darkness beneath Idris's eyes, bruised purple and deep as graves. Could see the way his small body shook with a palsy that had nothing to do with cold. What happened to him? His mother. Emrys's voice fractured on the word. She died 100 years ago. Truly died, our kind can be killed, though it is difficult. She was murdered by hunters who feared what we were. Idris saw it happen. He has not slept since. I have tried everything. Every ritual, every tonic, every spell whispered in languages older than Rome. Nothing soothes him. Nothing brings him rest. The child's eyes fixed on Sari. Something in that gaze went straight through her. Bypassing fear, bypassing reason, speaking directly to the part of her that had always answered suffering when it called. "Why did you summon me?" she whispered. "I summoned no one." Emrys moved between her and the door with inhuman speed, then seemed to think better of it, stepping aside with visible effort. "I have learned not to hunt near my own territory, not to draw attention. But Idris, when his pain grows too great, he screams. And sometimes people hear him. Most flee. But you came. I'm a healer." The words felt inadequate, almost laughable in this place of candlelight and immortality. "I tend the sick in my village." "I know." His expression shifted, became something both grateful and desperate. "I can smell the herbs on your skin, lavender and feverfew. You carry the scent of one who sits with the dying." She should have been terrified, should have been backing toward the door, fingers white-knuckled around her iron cross. But Idris whimpered again, and the sound tore something loose in her chest. "What do you want from me?" "Sing to him." Emrys knelt again beside his son, his large hand impossibly gentle as it smoothed the child's dark hair. The last person who came a traveling minstrel, 30 years ago, she sang to him. For 3 hours, he quieted. It was the closest he has come to peace since his mother died. "Please, I will pay you anything. I will give you gold, protection, whatever you ask. Just, please try." Sari looked at the child, this impossible, ancient, suffering child, and felt her grandmother's warnings crumble to ash. She had spent 3 years learning that pain was pain, regardless of who bore it. That mercy did not require understanding, only recognition. She knelt on the cold stone floor, setting her lantern beside her. The candlelight painted strange shadows across Idris's face, and she could see now the faint tracery of veins beneath skin that had not seen sunlight in a century. "What would you like me to sing?" Idris's lips moved, but no sound emerged. His hand crept across the blankets toward her, small fingers outstretched. Without thinking, Sari took his hand in hers. Ice. His skin was ice. But beneath that cold, she felt something else, a pulse, slow and strong, beating in time with rhythms no mortal heart had ever known. Anything. Emrys breathed. "Please, anything at all." Sari closed her eyes and reached back through memory for the lullaby her own mother had sung before the fever took her. Welsh words, old and sweet, about the moon watching over sleeping children, about darkness being a blanket, not a threat, about morning always returning, patient and sure. Her voice was nothing special. She had never trained, never performed, but she had sung to the dying often enough to know how to pour comfort into sound. She let the melody unspool, soft and slow, each note careful as a prayer. Idris's hand tightened on hers. The shaking slowed. His breathing, which had been shallow and rapid, began to deepen. Around them, the candle flames steadied, burning straight and true. Emrys made a sound that might have been a sob. Sari sang on, her voice filling the ancient hall. And for the first time in 100 years, the vampire child's eyes began to close. Chapter 2. The Bargain. The sun rose somewhere beyond the castle walls, but no light penetrated the great hall. Sari's voice had gone hoarse an hour ago, but she kept singing lullabies and folk songs and hymns half-remembered from childhood. Idris lay still now, his head resting against her lap, his small hand still clutching hers. Not sleeping, not quite, but something close, something that approximated peace. Emrys had not moved from his position across the blankets. He watched his son with an expression that transcended hunger or grief into something Sari had no name for. In the candlelight, she could see the exhaustion carved into his features, the weight of a century's helpless witness. "He quiets for you," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Truly quiets." Sari's throat ached. Her legs had gone numb beneath the child's weight, but she did not dare move. How long has it been since he last rested? 97 years, 4 months, 16 days. The precision was terrible. I have counted every one. And before? When his mother lived? He was young, 5 years old when she was killed. Emrys's hand moved to stroke his son's hair again, the gesture automatic, protective. Immortality does not settle into our blood until adolescence. He was still learning what he was, still more human than not. The hunters came at dawn. We should have been deep in sleep, but Idris woke with nightmares. His mother was comforting him when they broke through the doors. The image formed too easily in Sari's mind. A child watching his mother die, too young to save her, old enough to remember every moment forever. I'm sorry. She made me promise as she died that I would protect him, that I would find a way to heal him. His eyes, storm gray in the candlelight, fixed on Sari. I have failed for a century. You have succeeded in a single night. I've only helped him rest, not sleep. It is more than I have managed. He paused, something shifting behind his expression. I need you to stay. The words hung in the air between them. Outside, Sari could hear wind moving through the ruins, the distant cry of ravens. Her village would be waking now. The baker would be lighting his ovens. Her neighbor Tegwin would be checking the herb basket Sari had left on her doorstep, finding it empty, wondering, I cannot stay here. But even as she said it, she felt Idris's hand tighten on hers in sleep. I have responsibilities. People who depend on me, they will survive without you. Emrys's voice was flat, certain. My son will not survive without you, not truly, not in any way that matters. You're asking me to abandon my life. I am asking you to save his. Sari looked down at the child in her lap. In this dim light, he might have been any village boy worn out from play, his face peaceful, his breathing deep and even. But she could feel the unnatural chill of his skin through her skirts, could see the faint luminescence that seemed to gather beneath his closed eyelids. What would you have me do? Sing to him every night, until I die of old age? Yes, no hesitation, that is exactly what I ask. And when I'm gone, when I'm too old to climb this hill, what then? For the first time, Emrys looked away. His jaw tightened, tendons standing out against his throat. I do not know, but I will have given him decades of peace. Perhaps by then, I will have found another way. Or perhaps he will suffer again. Sari heard the harshness in her own voice, but could not soften it. Perhaps this is cruelty disguised as kindness, giving him comfort only to rip it away. Then what would you have me do? The words came out raw, desperate. Let him suffer now because he may suffer later? I have watched my son claw at his own face until he bled. I have held him through nights when his screams could shatter glass. If you can give him even 1 year of peace, 1 month, 1 week, I will take it. I will pay any price. The candles flickered as though stirred by an unfelt wind. Sari felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her like stone. She thought of Tegwin's daughter, who had died last winter despite everything Sari had done. Thought of old Murig, who had called for his dead wife in delirium while fever ate through his lungs. She had not been able to save them, had not been able to do anything but witness their pain and offer what small comfort she could. But here was pain she could ease, suffering she could actually touch. If I agree, she said slowly, I need certain things. Safety first. I will not become your prisoner. You will have complete freedom of the castle and grounds. Emrys leaned forward, intensity radiating from him like heat from iron. I swear it. You may leave whenever you wish. I ask only that you return each night to sing to him. And payment. I have no family to support, but I will need supplies. Herbs, books, warm clothing for winter. Done. Name anything you need, and I will provide it. How? The question escaped before she could stop it. How will you provide these things? You cannot walk in daylight, can you? A ghost of something that might have been a smile touched his lips. No, but I have. Resources. Friends who can move in the day. Arrangements made long ago. Other vampires. Some. And some who are merely old enough to know that monsters are not always what they seem. Sari studied him in the flickering light. He looked young, perhaps 30 in mortal years, but she could see the ancientness beneath his face, the way stone shows through shallow soil. How old are you? 643 years. He said it the way she might have said her age. A fact, neither proud nor ashamed. I was born in these lands when they still belonged to the princes of Gwynedd. I died or became what I am during the conquest. And Idris? 112. His mother was mortal. I loved her for 20 years before I dared ask if she would accept what I was. She said yes. His voice softened to something almost tender. She gave me 12 more years. Gave me a son. Died protecting him from those who feared our existence. The story settled into Sari's bones like cold. She looked at the child again, seeing him anew. A boy who should have grown to manhood centuries ago, trapped forever in the moment of his mother's death. A boy whose father had watched him suffer for longer than Sari's village had existed. I will need to return to the village, she said. To gather my things. To tell them. Something. Tell them you have taken a position as governess to a reclusive nobleman. Emrys's response came quick, practiced. It is close enough to the truth. I will send gold with you enough to silence questions. They will wonder about this place, about the castle. Let them wonder. No one will come here. They are too afraid. He paused. And they are right to be afraid. I am not tame, Sari. Do not mistake gentleness for harmlessness. I am a monster by any definition that matters. She met his eyes, those storm-gray eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. Then why not force me? If you are a monster, why bargain? Because my son's mother taught me that consent matters. His hand moved to Idris's shoulder, protective even in stillness. Because I have had 6 centuries to learn that power without restraint is merely tyranny. Because I want you to choose to help us, or I do not want your help at all. The words rang with a sincerity that surprised her. Sari shifted slightly, trying to restore feeling to her legs. Idris murmured in his half-sleep, his head pressing closer to her warmth. How often will I need to come? Every night if you can. Even a few hours makes a difference. Emrys's expression turned calculating. I can arrange transport, a carriage to bring you from the village at dusk, return you at dawn. You would lose little sleep. What we require is your voice, not your daylight hours. A carriage. How very civilized for a monster. I told you I have learned restraint. His mouth quirked. Also, horses fear me. It took decades to find ones who would tolerate my presence. Despite everything, the impossible situation, the danger, the strangeness, Sari felt laughter bubble up in her throat. She swallowed it down, but not before Emrys caught the edge of her smile. You laugh, he said, wonder touching his voice. Most people who discover what I am either scream or faint. Most people have not spent 3 years watching death work. Sari smoothed Idris's hair, the dark strands soft as silk beneath her fingers. I am not easily frightened anymore. Life has already shown me its cruelest face. Perhaps that is why he called to you. Emrys tilted his head, studying her with inhuman focus. Perhaps he sensed someone who understands suffering, who does not turn away from pain. Or perhaps I was simply the first fool, stubborn enough to climb this hill. She looked toward the door, where dawnlight was surely breaking over the valley. I should go soon, before the village wakes enough to notice my absence. Yes. But Emrys made no move to help her rise. Will you return tonight? Sari looked down at Idris, at this ancient child who had finally found a moment's peace in her presence. Thought of the empty cottage that awaited her, the endless procession of ailments and sorrows that filled her days. Thought of her grandmother's warnings and dismissed them. I will return, she said. Tonight, and each night after, until we find a better solution or until I can no longer climb this hill. Relief crashed across Emrys's face with such intensity that she realized how much he had expected her to refuse. How long he had been alone with his son's suffering, helpless and desperate. Thank you. He spoke the words like a prayer. Thank you, Sari. She startled. I never told you my name. His smile was sad, ancient. I heard you singing. I listened to every word, every verse. You sang of your mother's hands braiding your hair. You sang her name Sari, and yours. He paused. Memory is one of immortality's few gifts. I forget nothing. Not in 600 years. The thought should have been frightening. Instead, Sari found it oddly comforting that someone would remember this night, this choice, long after she was dust. Carefully, she began to ease Idris's head from her lap. The child stirred, a soft sound of protest escaping his lips, and immediately Emrys was there, gathering his son into his arms with supernatural gentleness. Idris settled against his father's chest, still half suspended in whatever peace Sari's singing had brought. I will watch over him until sunset, Emrys said. The carriage will come for you at dusk. Wait by the old standing stone at the village edge. How will I know it? It will know you. He rose in one fluid motion, cradling Idris as though he weighed nothing. Go now, before the sun climbs higher. The path is treacherous in full light. The villagers will see you returning. Sari retrieved her lantern, though its flame had long since guttered out. She moved toward the door, then paused on the threshold. Emrys? He looked up from his son's face. What is your blood price? If you do not hunt near your territory, where do you feed? His expression went carefully neutral. I have arrangements. Travelers who exchange their blood for gold. Criminals condemned to death who choose my bite over the gallows. I have not killed to feed in 200 years, but you have killed. Yes. No shame, no justification. I have killed. I will likely kill again if threatened, if my son is endangered. I am not redeemed, Sari. Only controlled. She nodded slowly. It was the honesty she had needed. Not pretense of harmlessness, but acknowledgement of danger paired with discipline. Until tonight, then, she said, and stepped out into the gray morning. Behind her, she heard Idris sigh in something that might have been sleep, and Emrys's whispered gratitude followed her down the hill like a blessing or a curse. She could not yet tell which. Chapter 3. The Threshold. The carriage arrived exactly at dusk. Sari waited by the standing stone, a cloth bag at her feet containing clean clothes and her grandmother's book of remedies. The village hummed with evening activity behind her, smoke rising from chimneys. Children called in for supper, the smith banking his forge for the night. No one had questioned her story of employment at a manor house. The gold Emrys had sent that morning, delivered by a cloaked messenger who never showed his face, had been sufficient to silence curiosity. Tegwin had been the only one to voice concern. That castle's cursed, Sari. Everyone knows it. I'm not going to the castle. The manor is in the next valley. The lie had come easily. Too easily. The carriage rounded the bend, black lacquer, gleaming, drawn by 2 gray horses whose eyes showed white in the failing light. The driver was hidden beneath a heavy cloak, his face shadowed. He did not speak as he descended to open the door, merely gestured for her to enter. The interior smelled of old leather, and something else, something cold and faintly metallic that made her throat tighten. The seats were velvet, worn soft by centuries of use. As the carriage jolted into motion, Sari gripped the edge of her seat and watched her village disappear into twilight. The journey took less than an hour. They climbed through forest thick with oak and ash, the road barely more than a track. When they finally stopped, Sari stepped out into the castle's courtyard and found it transformed. Torches blazed in iron sconces along the walls. The great door stood open, warm light spilling out, and Emrys waited at the threshold, dressed now in formal clothes, a long black coat over a silver waistcoat, his hair tied back with a ribbon. I looked every inch the nobleman she had claimed him to be. Welcome back, he said, and the relief in his voice was unmistakable. You thought I would not come. I hoped. I did not assume. He offered his hand to help her across the uneven stones. His palm was cool against hers, his grip gentle. Idris has been restless all day. He knows sunset approaches. Knows you may return? May? You told him I would. I told him you promised. But promises have been broken before. Emrys led her through the door into a hall that had been thoroughly cleaned since morning. Fresh rushes covered the floor. Tapestries had been mended or replaced. The candles burned in proper chandeliers now, not scattered across the floor like desperate offerings. I did not want him to suffer fresh disappointment if you changed your mind. I gave my word. So you did. He glanced at her, something almost like a smile touching his mouth. I am learning to trust that again. It has been some time. They walked through corridors that wound deep into the castle's heart. Sari glimpsed rooms through open doorways, a library thick with ancient volumes, a music room where a harpsichord sat beneath dusty sheets, chambers furnished with furniture from a dozen different centuries. The castle was a museum of Emrys's long life, each room a layer of accumulated time. Does anyone else live here? She asked. Not anymore. There were others once, others of my kind who sought refuge, but most have moved on to cities where they can hide more easily. I remained because Idris cannot travel, because I hoped, someday, to find a way to heal him in the place where he was hurt. That seems terribly lonely. Emrys stopped before a heavy wooden door. Loneliness is survivable. Helplessness is not. He pushed the door open. He is within. The chamber beyond was clearly Idris's room. A bed occupied one corner. Its covers turned down, though she suspected they were never used. Toys lay scattered across a bed, rug wooden soldiers, a leather ball, a set of carved animals. A rocking horse stood by the window, its paint faded but lovingly maintained. Idris sat in the center of the room, surrounded by cushions. His small face was tight with exhaustion, his eyes red-rimmed. But when he saw Sari, something in him loosened. He made a sound, not quite a word, and reached toward her. "Hello," Sari said softly. She set down her bag and crossed to him, kneeling on the cushions. "I told your father I would return." Idris's hand found hers, gripping tight. Up close, she could see the tremors running through him, the way his jaw clenched against some invisible pain. A century of exhaustion lived in that small body, and the weight of it was staggering. "He has not spoken since his mother died," Emery said from the doorway. "The trauma. It stole his voice, along with his rest. Can he understand us?" "Yes, everything. He is as intelligent as any child, more so, perhaps, with a century of witness behind him. But the words will not come." Sari squeezed Idris's hand gently. "Then we will not require words. Music needs no translation." She looked at Emery's. "May I have water? My throat is still raw from this morning." "Of course." He disappeared, moving with that unsettling speed. Left alone with Idris, Sari studied the child. In the warm light, she could see faint scars on his hands, old wounds, healed but not forgotten, evidence of the nights he had clawed at himself, desperate for the peace he could not find. "I know what it is to lose a mother," she told him quietly. "Mine died when I was 15. Fever took her in 3 days. I sang to her at the end, the same song she had sung to me. I thought, if she could hear familiar music, perhaps death would seem less frightening." Idris's eyes fixed on her face, ancient and young at once, full of a grief too large for his small frame. "I do not know if it helped, but I hope it did. I hope she heard me and remembered being happy." Sari reached up to brush his dark hair from his forehead. His skin was cold as marble, smooth as glass. "Your father says you remember everything. That must be terrible sometimes. But perhaps it also means your mother is not truly gone. Perhaps she lives in every memory you carry." A single tear slid down Idris's cheek. Emery's returned with a carafe of water and a crystal glass. He froze in the doorway, staring at his son's face. "He weeps," he breathed. "He has not wept in decades. Grief needs release." Sari accepted the water gratefully, drinking deep. The coldness soothed her throat. Holding it inside only makes the wound deeper. "I have told him that. I have begged him to cry, to rage, to feel, instead of simply enduring." Emery's moved closer, kneeling beside them. "He will not, or cannot. Perhaps he needed permission from someone who understands." Sari set down the glass and took both of Idris's hands in hers. "Your mother would not want you to suffer forever. I did not know her, but I know that no mother wishes eternal pain for her child. She would want you to heal, to rest." Idris's tears came faster now, silent sobs shaking his small frame. Emery's made a choked sound and gathered his son against his chest, holding him as the century of grief finally cracked open. Sari began to sing. She chose a Welsh hymn this time, one about sorrow being a river that must be crossed, about morning light waiting on the far shore. Her voice filled the chamber, weaving around the child's silent sobs, steady and sure as a hand extended in darkness. Slowly, gradually, Idris's crying eased. His breathing deepened, his small fists unclenched from his father's coat, and then, miracle of miracles, his eyes began to close. "Keep singing," Emery's whispered. "Please, do not stop." Sari sang on. She sang through hymns and lullabies and half-remembered ballads. She sang until her voice grew hoarse again, until the candles burned low in their sconces. And through it all, Idris drifted in that space between waking and true sleep, his breathing slow and even, his small body finally at rest. When midnight came, Emery's carefully laid his son in the bed. Idris did not wake, did not stir, merely settled deeper into the blankets like any mortal child surrendering to dreams. "He sleeps," Emrys said, and his voice was shattered with wonder. "Truly sleeps. I can feel it, the difference between this and mere quieting. He is dreaming." Sari's own exhaustion crashed over her. She had sung for 5 hours without pause. Her throat felt stripped raw. "That is good. Good." Emrys laughed, a startled, almost wild sound. "Good. It is everything. It is." He turned to her, and there were tears on his face, actual tears, red-tinged and strange. "Thank you. I have no words sufficient. Thank you. You need not thank me for mercy. Sari rose unsteadily, her legs cramping. Any decent person would do the same. You would be surprised how rare decency proves. He caught her arm as she swayed. You are exhausted. There are guest chambers you should rest before the carriage returns you. I cannot stay here. The village will assume you are safely at your employment. Please. His hand on her arm was gentle but insistent. You have given my son 5 hours of peace. Allow me to ensure you do not collapse on the journey home. The logic was sound, even if the situation was absurd. Sari found herself nodding. An hour, perhaps. No more. As you wish. He led her through corridors to a chamber clearly prepared for her arrival. A fire burned in the hearth. The bed was made with fresh linens. A pitcher of water and basin waited on a stand, and someone had laid out a nightgown, simple white cotton, soft with age. If you need anything, pull the cord by the bed. Emrys gestured to a braided rope. I will hear it. You will be with Idris? I will not leave his side. He paused at the door. Sleep well, Sari. You have earned a century of peaceful dreams. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Sari stood alone in the chamber, listening to the fire crackle. Beyond the window, the night was absolute, no village lights visible, no moon yet risen. She was isolated here, dependent on Emrys's goodwill and the promise of a carriage at dawn. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt only tired satisfaction. She had helped, had eased suffering that had persisted for a century. Whatever else Emrys might be, monster, predator, ancient thing, he was also a father who loved his child beyond reason, who had spent 100 years searching for any scrap of comfort he could provide. Sari washed her face in the basin, changed into the nightgown, and crawled into bed. The sheets smelled of lavender and frost. Through the walls, faint but present, she could hear Emrys singing a lullaby in a language she did not recognize, his deep voice a counterpoint to her own vanished melody. Father and son, she thought as sleep, claimed her. Both trapped by love and loss, both reaching for peace that had seemed forever beyond their grasp. Perhaps she could be the bridge between wanting and having. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could help them find their way across. Chapter 4. Blood and Boundaries. The carriage returned Sari to the village at dawn, the driver silent as ever. She fell into her cottage bed and slept until noon, waking to knocking at her door. Tegwin stood on the threshold with dread and concern etched into her round face. You look pale, her neighbor said, pushing past into the cottage. This employment, they are working you too hard. I am fine, only adjusting to new hours. Sari accepted the bread gratefully. She had not eaten since yesterday noon. The family keeps late evenings. They require my presence until after midnight. What sort of family keeps such hours? Wealthy ones. Eccentric ones. Sari tore off a piece of bread, chewing slowly. The master is reclusive. I have been engaged, primarily to care for his young son. It was not entirely a lie. She clung to that. Tegwin settled into a chair, her sharp eyes missing nothing. You look exhausted, and your throat, you sound hoarse. The boy has nightmares. I sing to him. All night? As long as necessary. Sari poured water from her pitcher, drinking deep. He is a troubled child. But I am making progress. Troubled how? Too many questions. Sari forced a smile. That is between myself and his father. I am paid for discretion, as well as care. Tegwin's mouth tightened, but she did not press further. They spoke of village matters, the baker's new apprentice, the sheep that had wandered into the church, the widow Hoylwyn's persistent cough. Normal concerns. Safe concerns. Sari answered automatically, her mind already drifting back to the castle, to Idris's sleeping face, to Emrys's tears of gratitude. When Tegwin finally left, Sari prepared for the coming night. She made a strong tea for her throat, packed her bag with the remedies she might need, and penned a quick note to the village healer explaining that her services would be limited for the foreseeable future. The gold Emrys had sent would more than compensate for lost income. By the time dusk arrived, she was waiting at the standing stone, anticipation humming beneath her skin. The pattern established itself over the following week. Each evening, the carriage arrived. Each night, Sari sang to Idris for hours, while Emrys watched from the chamber's corners, his presence a constant shadow. The child's rest deepened with each session. By the fourth night, he was sleeping so soundly that Sari could stop singing for minutes at a time without him stirring. He is healing, Emrys said on the seventh night. They stood in the corridor outside Idris's chamber, keeping their voices low. The change in him is remarkable. He plays now, during the day. He explores the castle. Yesterday, he laughed. That is wonderful. It is miraculous. Emrys leaned against the stone wall, exhaustion visible in the line of his shoulders. I had forgotten what his laughter sounded like. Sari studied him in the torchlight. He looked worn, the careful control she associated with him fraying at the edges. When did you last feed? He stiffened. That is not your concern. You look hungry. She had learned to read the signs the way his eyes lingered on the pulse at her throat, the tension in his jaw when she moved too close. I am not afraid to say it. How long has it been? 3 weeks, perhaps 4. He turned his face away. I do not like to leave when you are here. If Idris wakes and finds us both gone, then feed now. I will stay with him. No, Emrys, no. He pushed away from the wall, agitation making his movements sharp. That is how mistakes happen. That is how control slips. Those you care for? Sari's voice came out softer than intended. He froze. I only meant, you have been kind to my son. I would not repay that kindness by endangering you. I understand the distinction between hunger and malice. She took a step closer. And I have seen you exercise restraint. But you are weakening yourself for no reason. Surely you have some arrangement, someone who could come here. I do. The admission came reluctantly. There is a woman in the next county. She has given me her blood for 20 years in exchange for gold and protection from an abusive husband. I have not visited her in over a month. Then go tonight. I will remain here until dawn if needed. Emrys's gaze snapped to hers, intensity burning in those storm-gray eyes. You would stay the night in a vampire's castle, alone save for a sleeping child, trusting that I will return and keep my word? Yes. The single word hung between them. Sari held his stare, refusing to look away, refusing to show the small tremor of fear that lived beneath her certainty. Because there was fear, she would have been a fool not to feel it. But there was also faith, earned through 7 nights of watching him gentle his son, listening to him sing lullabies in dead languages, seeing him turn his face from her throat even when hunger made his hands shake. You are either very brave or very foolish, Emrys said finally. Perhaps both. Sari managed to smile. My grandmother would certainly say so. Your grandmother was wise to warn you away from this place. But his expression had softened. Very well, I will go, but I will return before dawn, and I will arrange for food to be brought to you, proper food. You have been living on bread and water for days. I had not noticed. I notice. He moved past her toward the stairs, then paused. Sari? Thank you, for trusting me. Then he was gone, moving with that supernatural speed that still startled her. Alone in the corridor, Sari returned to Idris's chamber. The child slept peacefully, his small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. She settled into the chair beside his bed, the same chair Emrys occupied each night, and allowed herself to truly look around the room. Drawings covered one wall, childish sketches in charcoal and chalk. Most depicted a woman with long dark hair and a gentle smile. Idris's mother, Cherry realized. He had been drawing her over and over, trying to hold onto her face. On the windowsill, a dried flower preserved in glass. On the shelf, a small wooden box carved with intricate knotwork. Sari rose and crossed to examine it more closely. Inside, she found a lock of dark hair tied with faded ribbon, a ring too small for adult fingers, and a folded piece of parchment. She should not have opened it, should not have read the cramped, elegant script. But curiosity overcame propriety. My dearest Emrys, if you are reading this, then I am dead and you are searching for answers in our son's possessions. Do not. The answers you seek are not in objects but in time that great healer even immortality cannot deny. I know. You will blame yourself. I know you will carry my death as a wound that never closes. But I chose this life with you. I chose it knowing the dangers. I chose it because loving you and our son was worth any risk. Idris will need you to be strong now. He will need you to show him that grief does not destroy us, it transforms us. Teach him to honor my memory by living fully, not by mourning endlessly. And Emrys, my love, forgive yourself. For whatever you think you failed to do, whatever you believe you should have prevented, forgive yourself and help our son do the same. I love you. I have loved you since the first night you told me what you were and waited, terrified, for my rejection. I will love you beyond death, beyond time, beyond whatever comes after. Yours eternally, Aelwyn Sari folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the box. Her throat felt tight with borrowed grief. She returned to the chair, pulling a blanket around herself against the stone chamber's chill. So, this was the woman who had tamed an ancient vampire's heart, who had given him a child and 12 years of happiness, who had died telling him to forgive himself a command he clearly had not been able to obey. An hour passed. 2. Sari dozed lightly, jerking awake each time Idris stirred, but the child remained deep in sleep, undisturbed by dreams or memory. Near midnight, footsteps sounded in the corridor. Sari tensed, then relaxed as Emrys appeared in the doorway. He looked renewed color in his cheeks, strength returned to his frame. Fed, she realized. The woman in the next county had given him what he needed. "You are still here," he said. "I gave my word." "So you did." He crossed to stand beside her, looking down at his sleeping son. "I brought food. It is in the library. You must be starving." "I am hungry," she admitted. "Then come. Idris will not wake. I can hear the depth of his sleep." She followed him through shadowed corridors to the library. A small table had been set near the fire with bread, cheese, cold meat, and wine. Simple fare, but more than she usually ate. Sari sat and began to eat while Emrys poured wine into crystal glasses. He handed her one, then took the other for himself, though she suspected he would not drink. "You read her letter," he said abruptly. Sari's hand stilled on the bread. "I apologize. I should not have. You should not have. But I am not angry." He turned the wineglass between his hands. "What did you think? That she loved you very much? That she understood what she was asking you to do?" "Forgive myself." His laugh was bitter. A simple command. Impossible to obey. "Why?" "Because I could have prevented her death." The words came harsh, self-lacerating. "I knew the hunters were in the region. I knew they were searching for our kind. I should have taken her and Idris away, should have fled to safety, but I was arrogant. I thought the castle's wards would hold. I thought my strength was sufficient to protect, and you were wrong. And I was wrong." He drank the wine in one swallow. "They broke through at dawn. I was too deep in day sleep to wake. Aelwyn tried to hide Idris in the walls, but he ran to help her. He saw them stake her heart, saw her burn in sunlight when they dragged her outside. By the time I clawed my way to consciousness, she was ash, and Idris was screaming. The image was brutal." Sari set down her bread, appetite fled. "That is not your fault, is it not? If I had never claimed her, she would have lived a normal life, married a mortal man, died old and peaceful in her bed. If you had never claimed her, she would never have had Idris, would never have known the love you gave her." Sari leaned forward. "Emrys, we cannot choose safety over love and call it living. Your Aelwyn knew that. She chose you, knowing the risks. Honor that choice by respecting it." He stared at her. "You are wise beyond your years. I am old enough to have buried people I loved. Old enough to understand that regret is a poison we drink ourselves." She resumed eating, keeping her tone gentle. "Aelwyn told you to help Idris heal. That is what you are doing. It simply took a century to find the way. And you were the way." Emrys refilled his wineglass but did not drink. "I have been thinking. After Idris heals fully, you will no longer be needed here. Your obligation will end." Something in his tone made her look up sharply. "Yes, that was the agreement. Would you?" He stopped, started again. "Would you consider continuing to visit? Not from obligation, but choice? I find I have. Grown accustomed to company. And Idris responds to you as he has to no one else." Sari's heart did something complicated in her chest. "You are asking me to be your friend?" "Yes, though I understand if that is too strange. If the differences between us make it impossible." She studied him, this ancient, powerful creature who looked at her with such careful hope. "I do not think it impossible. Strange, perhaps, but not impossible." Relief flooded his face. "Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence while Sari finished her meal. The fire crackled. Beyond the windows, the night was vast and starless. "Emrys?" Sari said finally. "The woman you visit, the one who gives you blood. Does she know what you truly are?" "Yes. I told her the first night. I have learned that lies of omission cause more pain than honest disclosure." "And she is not afraid?" "She was terrified initially, but her husband was worse than any vampire." His mouth twisted. "I gave her gold enough to leave him. In return, she allows me to feed monthly. It is a transaction, nothing more. Do you miss it? True intimacy with someone who shares your blood? The question hung between them. Emrys's eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw the depth of loneliness that lived in him, centuries of distance, isolation chosen and endured. Every day, he said quietly, but I gave up that dream when Aelwyn died. I will not subject another mortal to the dangers of loving me. What about subjects? Subjects are not the same as objects of romance. Subjects implies ruling. I am no one's lord anymore. Then friends. Ciri rose, gathering the dishes. Friends who visit in the night and sing lullabies to sleeping children. Friends who drink wine and speak honestly. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps. But something in his expression suggested he hoped for more. Though what exactly? Ciri could not say. The carriage brought her home at dawn. As she fell into bed, exhausted and strangely content, she realized that her life had tilted irrevocably off its axis. The village seemed smaller now, less substantial. Her cottage felt like a borrowed space, temporary and thin. The castle, with its shadows and secrets, was becoming home. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Chapter 5. Fangs and Honesty. 3 weeks passed. Idris's transformation was remarkable. He played in the castle gardens during the evening hours, explored the library with voracious curiosity, even began organizing his toys with the careful precision of a much older child. The century of sleeplessness faded from his face like fog before sun. He looked truly young again, unburdened. But he still did not speak. Ciri arrived one evening to find Emrys pacing the great hall, agitation clear in every line of his body. Idris sat cross-legged on the floor, stacking wooden blocks into elaborate towers. "What is wrong?" she asked. He tried to speak today. Emrys's voice was tight. He opened his mouth, formed the words. I could see him struggling with it. But nothing came out. The trauma has locked his voice away so completely that even healing his sleep cannot free it. Ciri set down her bag and crossed to Idris. The child looked up at her, frustration evident in his ancient eyes. She knelt beside him. "Show me," she said gently. "Show me what you wanted to say." Idris's mouth opened, his lips shaped sounds. But only the faintest whisper emerged, more breath than speech. His small hands clenched in frustration, and he knocked down his tower with a sweep of his arm. "It is all right," Ciri soothed. "We will find another way." But Idris shook his head violently. He grabbed a piece of charcoal from the hearth and began drawing on the stones quick, desperate strokes that formed words. "I want to talk to you." Tears pricked Ciri's eyes. She looked up at Emrys, who had gone very still. "He writes," Emrys breathed. "I never thought to teach him writing as communication. I was so focused on trying to restore his speech." "Then we have been approaching this wrong." Ciri smoothed Idris's hair. "You do not need to speak aloud to be heard. Paper and ink can carry your voice just as well." Idris's eyes went wide. He grabbed her hand and squeezed tight. Gratitude and hope mingled in that small gesture. Within the hour, Emrys had brought parchment, ink, and a quill. Idris's handwriting was shaky at first. He had not written in a century, but it steadied quickly. His first complete sentence made Emrys turn away to hide his tears. "Thank you for singing to me. I dream about my mother now. Good dreams." "Oh, sweetheart," Ciri whispered. "I am so glad." That night, they established a new routine. Ciri sang until Idris drifted into sleep, then retired to the library with Emrys. They had fallen into the habit of these late-night conversations discussing books, philosophy, the strange contradictions of his immortal existence. "Tell me about becoming," Ciri said one night, curled in a chair with wine warming her hands. "You said you died during the conquest. How does one become a vampire?" Emrys sat across from her, firelight playing across his features. "Are you certain you wish to know?" "The details are not pleasant." "I am certain." He nodded slowly. "It requires 3 things: blood exchange, death, and intention. The vampire must drain the mortal nearly to death, then feed them vampire blood. The mortal must then die through injury, illness, or time while that blood is still active in their body. If their will is strong enough, if they cling to existence fiercely enough, they wake as we are. And you? How did it happen to you?" His gaze went distant. "I was a soldier, 28 years old, wounded badly in a border skirmish. I was dying slowly, bleeding out in the ruins of a monastery. A vampire found me there. An old creature, lonely, looking for a companion. She offered me a choice, death or transformation. I was young enough, foolish enough, to choose transformation without understanding what it meant. Do you regret it? Every day, and never. He looked at her. I have lived long enough to see empires rise and fall. I have watched humanity grow and change in ways I never imagined possible. I have had Idris and known Aelwyn, but I have also watched everyone I loved die. I have carried 600 years of grief. If offered the choice again, I do not know what I would choose. Sari sipped her wine, considering. Would you ever offer that choice to another? No. Immediate, certain. Not unless they were dying and begged me. I will not inflict this existence on anyone who does not fully comprehend what they are choosing. Even someone you loved? His eyes locked on hers. Especially someone I loved. The weight behind those words pressed against her chest. Sari looked away first, setting down her wine glass. Tell me about the limitations. Silver, sunlight, invitations which are true. Sunlight is deadly, complete immolation in minutes. He held up his hand, showing her a faint scar across his palm. This is from a single ray of dawn light. It took weeks to heal. Silver weakens us, makes feeding difficult, but does not burn. Invitations. He smiled faintly. That is complicated. A threshold ward can keep me out if the dwelling is owned and occupied. But abandoned places, public spaces, hotels, those I can enter freely. And crosses? Holy water? Faith can hurt us, but only if the wielder's belief is genuine and strong. A priest who truly believes can make me recoil with a cross, but a frightened villager waving one frantically does nothing. He leaned forward. Our kind are not demons, Sari. We are simply changed. Evolved, perhaps, or cursed, depending on your perspective. We retain our souls, our capacity for love and choice. We are simply other. Do you believe in God? After 600 years? I believe in mystery, in forces larger than myself. Whether that is God or something else, I cannot say. He paused. Do you? I believe in mercy, Sari said. In compassion. In the small graces we offer each other. If that is God, then yes. If not, it is enough. You would have made a good philosopher. I make a better healer. She rose, stretching. I should check on Idris before the carriage arrives. They walked together, to Idris's chamber. The child slept peacefully, a slight smile on his lips. On his nightstand, a fresh stack of parchment waited, covered in his careful handwriting. Stories, Sari realized. He was writing stories, adventures, and fantasies, worlds where mothers did not die and children did not suffer. He is healing, Emrys murmured. Truly healing now. Yes. Sari touched Idris's forehead gently. Soon he will not need me at all. And when that day comes, will you still visit? She looked up at Emrys, at the careful hope in his expression. Yes, I will visit. Because we are friends. Because we are friends. She hesitated, then added, though I confess, I am not certain what friendship means between mortal and immortal. We are hardly equals. Are we not? He moved closer, his voice low. You have power over me, Sari. You have brought peace to my son when I could not. You have made this castle feel less like a tomb. Do not mistake immortality for superiority. I am learning that you possess strength I lack. The words hung between them, intimate and dangerous. Sari felt her pulse quicken, felt the small distance between them grow charged with something unnamed. Emrys. The carriage waits, he said abruptly, stepping back. You should go before dawn. The moment broke. Sari nodded, suddenly uncertain, and let him lead her to the courtyard. As she climbed into the carriage, she glanced back at the castle. Emrys stood in the doorway, backlit by candlelight, watching her leave. She lifted her hand in farewell. He raised his in return, then vanished into shadow. The carriage rolled into motion, carrying her back toward the village, toward normalcy, toward the life she had inhabited before ancient vampires and immortal children had claimed her heart. But that life felt like a story she had once heard, familiar yet distant. This the castle, the singing, the late-night conversations. This had become real in a way nothing else was. And that terrified her more than any vampire ever could. Chapter 6. Blood Ties. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Sari found it on her doorstep at noon, sealed with black wax bearing an unfamiliar sigil. Inside, Emrys's elegant script. Sari, do not come tonight. It is not safe. I will send word when the danger has passed. No explanation, no details. Fear clawed up her throat. Sari dressed quickly and set out for the castle on foot, ignoring the promise she had made to always wait for the carriage. The afternoon sun slanted through trees as she climbed the familiar path. By the time she reached the castle gates, she was breathless and trembling. The courtyard was empty, the great door sealed. She pounded on it. Emrys! Idris! Let me in! Silence. Then, from somewhere deep within, she heard Idris's scream. Not the wail of exhaustion she had first heard, but something sharper, terrified. Sari tried the door. Locked. She circled the castle, searching for another entrance. There, a postern gate hanging askew. She squeezed through, tearing her skirt on rough stone, and stumbled into a corridor she did not recognize. Emrys! Her voice echoed off vaulted ceilings. Where are you? More screaming. She followed the sound through twisting passages until she burst into the great hall. The scene before her stopped her dead. 3 vampires stood in a loose circle around Emrys and Idris. 2 men and a woman, all dressed in elegant clothes that marked them as nobility. Their eyes glowed red in the torchlight, not the gray of Emrys's gaze, but something wilder, hungrier. Emrys stood in front of his son, arms spread protectively. Blood ran from a gash on his forehead. Behind him, Idris pressed against the wall, his small face white with terror. You dare bring mortals into our territory? One of the male vampires hissed. His accent was thick, Eastern European. You risk exposure for all our kind. She is no risk, Emrys snarled. She knows to keep our secret. And when she ages, dies? What story? Will her family tell about her mysterious employment? The woman vampire's lips pulled back from fangs. You have grown weak, Emrys. Soft. The old lord would never have tolerated such foolishness. I am the old lord of these lands. You have no authority here. No? The second male vampire laughed. Your authority ended the day you chose sentiment over strength. The council has decided the mortal dies tonight, and your son will be placed with a family who can control him properly. No! Emrys's roar shook the walls, his form blurred, speed and strength manifesting as barely contained violence. You will not touch either of them, Emrys. Sari's voice cut through the tension. All 4 vampires' heads snapped toward her. I am here. Sari, run. Emrys's voice was ragged with fear. Please, just run. But she was already moving forward, her healer's instinct overriding self-preservation. If the council is concerned about secrecy, killing me will only create more questions. My disappearance will bring hunters here, looking for answers. The female vampire's eyes narrowed. What do you propose? Let me speak. Let me explain why I am here, and why your fears are groundless. Sari stopped a few feet from the circle, forcing her hands not to shake. After that, if you still wish to kill me, I will not resist. But hear me first. The vampires exchanged glances. Finally, the first male nodded. Speak, mortal. Your words will determine whether you see another dawn. Sari took a breath. My name is Sari. I came to this castle 6 weeks ago because I heard a child suffering and could not ignore it. I am a healer. I have spent my adult life tending the sick and dying in my village. When I discovered what Emrys and Idris were, I was given a choice. Flee or help. I chose to help because suffering is suffering, regardless of who bears it. How noble, the woman sneered. And what payment do you receive for this charity? Gold enough to replace my lost income. Safety within these walls. Nothing more. Sari met her gaze steadily. I do not seek wealth or power. I do not wish to become what you are. I simply want to ease a child's pain. A child who has suffered for a century through no fault of his own. And when you return to your village, when age loosens your tongue, I will say what I have always said, that I care for a reclusive nobleman's son. Sari kept her voice level. I am practiced at keeping confidence. I have held the secrets of dying patients, of women who sought herbs to end unwanted pregnancies, of men who confessed sins to me in fever dreams. I do not break trust. The second male vampire moved closer, inhaling deeply. She carries no scent of deception. Either she speaks truth or she believes her own lies. I speak truth. Sari turned to Idris, still pressed against the wall. Ask him. Ask Idris if I have ever betrayed his father's confidence. The child's eyes were wide, terrified. but he nodded vigorously, then grabbed the charcoal from the floor and wrote in desperate strokes, "She is good. She saved me. Don't hurt her." The first vampire read the words and frowned. "The boy trusts her." "The boy is traumatized and easily manipulated," the woman countered. "No." Emrys's voice was cold as winter. "My son is wiser than any of us. He has suffered more than you can imagine. If he says she can be trusted, then she can be trusted. You are biased. I am his father." Emrys moved to stand beside Sari. The solidarity of the gesture was not lost on her. "And I am still lord of these lands, council or no council. This is my territory, my castle, my decision. Sari stays. If you have a problem with that, challenge me directly instead of threatening a mortal woman." The tension ratcheted higher. The three vampires exchanged weighted looks. Finally, the first male spoke. "Very well. We will report to the council that you have taken measures to ensure discretion. But Emrys, if she betrays us, the consequences will fall on your head, and your sons. She will not betray us. For your sake, I hope you are correct." The vampire turned to Siri. "You have been granted a reprieve, mortal. Do not waste it. And do not mistake mercy for weakness." Then they were gone, moving with that terrible speed, vanishing into shadow and leaving only the scent of old blood behind. Sari's knees gave out. She sat down hard on the cold stone floor, adrenaline crash hitting her like a physical blow. Distantly, she felt Emrys's hand on her shoulder, heard Idris's small sob of relief. "You should not have come," Emrys said hoarsely. "The letter said to stay away." "I heard Idris scream. I could not." She looked up at him, at the blood still streaking his face. "Are you hurt?" "I heal quickly. It is nothing." He knelt beside her. "Sari, what you did speaking for us, offering yourself as surety, that was incredibly brave and incredibly foolish. It worked, did it not? This time. But they will be watching now, waiting for any excuse to declare you a threat." His hand tightened on her shoulder. "You have made enemies tonight. Then I will be careful." Sari forced herself to stand. Her legs felt like water. "Where is Idris?" The child had collapsed against the wall, still writing frantically on the stones. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Sari crossed to him and pulled him into her arms. He clung to her, his small body shaking. Cold as he was, lifeless as vampire flesh felt, she could feel the emotion in him, relief and gratitude and lingering terror all tangled together. "It is all right," she murmured. "You are safe now. I am here." Emrys watched them, something complicated moving behind his eyes. "The council will not forget this. They believe mortals and immortals should never mix. They see my attachment to you as weakness." "Is it?" Sari met his gaze over Idris's head. "I do not know. Honest. Raw. All I know is that I cannot imagine this castle without you now. Cannot. Imagine facing my son's nightmares alone again. You have become necessary." The word settled between them, heavy with implication. "Necessary," Sari repeated. "Not wanted, not desired. Necessary." "All three?" Emrys said quietly. "If I am being honest, all three." Idris pulled back and began writing again. "You like her?" Emrys's expression softened. "Yes, Idris. I like her very much." "Good. Me too. Despite everything, the fear, the danger, the impossible situation." Sari felt warmth bloom in her chest. This strange little family had claimed her as completely as she had claimed them. "I should sing," she said. "Idris needs rest after such trauma." They moved to Idris's chamber. Sari sang for hours while Emrys sat beside them, his hand resting on his son's small shoulder. When the child finally slept, Emrys walked Sari to the library. "You cannot use the carriage anymore," he said. "The council knows about you now. They will track your movements. Then how will I come?" "Through the hidden ways. I will show you a path through the forest that avoids the main road. It will take longer, but it will be safer." He paused. "Sari, I must ask, do you truly wish to continue, knowing the danger?" She thought of Idris's sleeping face, thought of the way Emrys looked at her as though she was something precious and terrifying at once. "Yes," she said. "I wish to continue. Why?" The question was almost desperate. "Why risk so much for us?" "Because you are worth the risk." Simple. True. Both of you. Emrys closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they shone with unshed tears, red and strange and heartbreaking. I do not deserve your loyalty. Perhaps not. Sari reached up and touched his cheek, wiping away a crimson tear. But you have it anyway. His hand covered hers, cool and gentle. They stood like that for a long moment, mortal and immortal, healer and monster, two people who had found something they could not name in each other's company. Then Emrys stepped back. Dawn comes soon. I will walk you to the edge of the forest and show you the hidden path. They left the castle in silence, moving through moonlight and shadow. At the forest's edge, Emrys showed her the marker-specific trees, rock formations, the way moss grew on certain stones. Follow these, he said. They will lead you back to the village. And Sari, be careful. The council has spies everywhere. I will. She paused at the path's beginning. Emrys, thank you for defending me. You defended us first. His smile was sad. We are even. She watched him fade back into darkness, his form dissolving into shadow, until she could not tell where the vampire ended and the night began. Then she walked home through the pre-dawn light, carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken words and the certainty that her life had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more precious. Chapter 7. Midnight Lessons. The hidden path became Sari's nightly pilgrimage. She learned to read the forest's signs, the owl's call that meant clear passage, the fox's bark that warned of strangers, the way moonlight fell differently on paths walked by immortal feet. She saw no sign of the council's watchers, but felt their presence nonetheless. A shadow that moved wrong, a scent on the wind that did not belong. Emrys's tension was palpable. He insisted on walking her to and from the forest edge each night, his senses stretched to their limits, searching for threats. Idris noticed his father's fear and began sleeping less soundly again, plagued by nightmares of separation. We cannot live like this, Sari said one night in the library. 2 months had passed since the council's visit. This constant vigilance is exhausting all of us. I know, Emrys stared into the fire, but I do not know how to make them trust you. Trust is not something my kind gives easily. Then perhaps I should learn to defend myself. The idea had been growing in Sari's mind for weeks. Teach me about your world, your strengths, your weaknesses. If I understand what I face, I might stand a chance. Sari, I am not helpless, she cut him off, but I am ignorant. Ignorance is what will get me killed, not lack of strength. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. We will start tonight. They moved to the courtyard, where moonlight spilled silver across ancient stones. Emrys walked her through the basics. How vampires moved, how they hunted, the subtle tells that distinguished mortal from immortal. Watch my eyes, he said, standing in the center of the courtyard. When we are calm, they are human-colored. When we are hungry or angry or afraid, they shift red. It is involuntary, a warning sign. He closed his eyes, concentrating. When he opened them, they burned crimson as coals. Sari gasped, despite herself. He looked terrifying, beautiful and deadly, and utterly inhuman. This is what I am, he said softly. This is the truth beneath the civilized facade. You are still you, she replied. The color of your eyes does not change that. He blinked, and the red faded back to gray. You have more courage than sense, perhaps. She moved closer. What else? What other signs? Temperature. We run cold, you have noticed this with Idris. Our skin feels like marble or ice. Heartbeat is slow, barely detectable. We cast reflections, contrary to myth, but they are slightly off, not quite aligned with reality. And your speed? Your strength? Strength is perhaps 5 times that of a mortal man. Speed. He vanished. Sari spun, heart racing, and found him standing behind her. We can move faster than your eye can track. It is disorienting for mortals, induces panic. It worked, Sari admitted, pulse racing. How do I counter it? You do not. Against an adult vampire, a mortal has almost no chance in direct combat. He circled her slowly. But you can learn to predict movement. We leave tells air displacement, sound, scent. If you train your senses, you can track us even when you cannot see us. Show me. They practiced for an hour. Emrys would move at supernatural speed while Sari tried to track him using sound and air movement alone. She failed repeatedly, growing frustrated, until finally she caught the whisper of his passage and spun to block his approach. Good. He stopped just short of touching her, You are learning. Learning to lose less badly, she corrected. Against my kind, that may be enough. He stepped back. Now, weaknesses. Silver makes us sluggish, we can still move. But it is like fighting through water. Sunlight is instantly fatal. Decapitation works, as does burning. A stake through the heart paralyzes but does not kill unless we are then exposed to sunlight. And hunger? How does that affect you? His expression shuddered. Hunger makes us dangerous, makes us unpredictable. The longer we go without feeding, the more our control slips. When did you last feed? 2 weeks ago. And when were you supposed to feed again? Tomorrow night. He turned away. But I will not leave while the council is watching. If they think I have abandoned you in Idris, they might strike. Then feed here. The words hung in the courtyard. Emery's went very still. Sari, you said you need blood monthly to remain strong. It has been 2 weeks since your last feeding, and you will not leave us unprotected. She forced her voice to stay steady. So feed from me. Absolutely not. Why not? You have arrangements with other mortals. I can be one more arrangement. No. He turned to face her, eyes flashing red. I do not feed from those I care for. That is how disasters happen. That is how people die. I trust you not to kill me. Your trust is misplaced. His hands clenched into fists. You do not understand the hunger, Sari. The way it seizes control. I am strong, yes, but when blood is on my tongue, when the scent of it fills my senses, I become something else, something monstrous. Then teach me the signs. Teach me when to pull away, when to stop you. She moved closer. Emrys, you are weakening yourself out of fear, but staying weak makes you vulnerable, makes us vulnerable. This is practical, not romantic. There is nothing practical about what you are offering, but his resistance was wavering. If I hurt you, you will not. You cannot know that. I know you have controlled yourself for 200 years. I know you have never killed to feed in that time. I know you are strong enough to stop. She held out her wrist. Please, let me help you as you have helped me. Emery stared at her offered wrist. She could see the war in his expression, hunger versus control, need versus ethics. Finally, he took her hand in his, cradling it gently. If I tell you to stop me, you push me away, physically, as hard as you can. His voice was rough. Promise me. I promise. He lifted her wrist to his mouth. His breath was cold against her skin. This will hurt initially. Then it will feel good. Too good. That is the danger. The venom in our bite induces pleasure to keep prey compliant. Do not surrender to it. Stay aware. I understand. His fangs lengthened, she felt, rather than saw the transformation. Then pressure, sharp and sudden, and pain lanced up her arm. Sari bit back a cry. Emrys's mouth sealed over the wound, and she felt the pull of his feeding, a strange, rhythmic suction that sent heat flooding through her veins. The pain faded. In its place came a sensation unlike anything she had ever experienced, warmth and languor, and a pleasure so intense it bordered on overwhelming. Her knees weakened. She swayed, and Emrys's free arm came around her waist, supporting her. Stay aware, she reminded herself. Do not lose yourself. But it was difficult. The pleasure built with each pull of blood, spiraling higher, turning her thoughts hazy. She could feel her heartbeat slowing, her breathing becoming shallow. Emrys, she whispered. Enough. He did not stop. Emrys, louder now. Stop. His arm tightened around her waist. The pulling intensified. Sari shoved him as hard as she could. Emery stumbled back, releasing her wrist. His eyes blazed red, his fangs still extended, blood staining his lips. For a moment, one terrible moment, he looked at her like prey. Then control slammed back down. The red faded from his eyes. He turned away sharply, shoulders heaving. Go, he said hoarsely. Back to the castle. Now. Sari pressed her hand over the wound on her wrist. Blood seeped through her fingers. Emery's, now! The word came out as a roar. She fled. Through the courtyard, into the castle, up the stairs to Idris's chamber. The child was awake, his face frightened. He grabbed parchment. What happened? I am fine, but she was shaking, reaction setting in. Your father fed from me. It went, mostly as planned. Idris's eyes went wide. He wrote frantically. He drank your blood? I offered. Sari collapsed into the chair beside his bed. He needed strength. I provided it. Did he hurt you? She looked at the wound on her wrist, 2 neat punctures slowly closing. No. Not really. It was intense. Idris studied her face, then wrote, "You love him." The words hit Sari like cold water. She opened her mouth to deny it, then closed it. Because Idris was right. Somewhere in the past 2 months, amid lullabies and midnight conversations and shared danger, she had fallen in love with an ancient vampire. "Yes," she whispered. "I think I do." Idris smiled, actually smiled, the first genuine expression of joy she had seen on his face. He wrote, "Good. He loves you too. He does not." "Yes, he does. I see it. The way he looks at you. The way he speaks your name." Idris paused, then added, "He has not loved anyone since my mother died. You brought him back." Sari's throat tightened. "I do not know what to do with that. Be patient. He is afraid." Idris reached over and squeezed her uninjured hand. "But he will realize eventually. And if he does not, then you must tell him." The boy's eyes were ancient and wise. Life is too short not to speak true feelings, even for immortals. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Emrys appeared in the doorway, his face carefully controlled. "Sari, may I speak with you?" She rose unsteadily and followed him to the library. He closed the door behind them, then turned to face her. "I am sorry," he said flatly. "I lost control, exactly as I feared. You stopped when I pushed you. I should have stopped when you first asked." His jaw was tight. "I put you in danger. That is unforgivable. Emrys, I will make arrangements to feed elsewhere tomorrow night. This will not happen again." He moved to the window, his back to her. "You should go home. It is nearly dawn. I am not leaving until we discuss this properly." "There is nothing to discuss. I proved tonight that I am exactly what I claimed, a monster poorly restrained." Sari crossed to stand beside him. "You proved that you are strong enough to stop even when instinct screams otherwise. You proved that your control, while imperfect, is sufficient." "Sufficient." He laughed bitterly. "I nearly drained you. Another 30 seconds and you would have lost consciousness. Another minute and you might have died. But I did not. Because you stopped." She touched his arm. "Emrys, I am not some fragile thing that will shatter at the first sign of danger. I knew the risks. I accepted them. You should not have to accept such risks." He turned to face her finally. "You should be with someone safe, someone mortal, someone who does not see you as prey one moment and what?" She held his gaze. "And what, Emrys?" He closed his eyes. "Someone who does not think about you every moment you are gone, who does not count the hours until sunset when you return, who does not dream insofar as my kind dreams of a future that can never exist." Her heart stuttered. "Why can it never exist?" "Because I am cursed. Because everyone I love dies or suffers. Because the council will never accept a mortal in my life permanently." He opened his eyes. "Because you deserve better than an eternity watching me remain unchanging while you age and sicken and die. That is my choice to make, is it?" His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "What choice can you make when you do not fully understand what you are choosing? You are 21 years old, Sari. You have barely lived. And I am asking you to throw your life away on a cursed vampire and his traumatized son. You are not asking. I am offering." She covered his hand with hers. "And I understand perfectly well what I am choosing. I am choosing you, both of you, for however long I have. That is not enough." But his thumb was still moving across her cheek, his touch achingly gentle. "I want more than however long you have. I want forever. And I cannot have it. Then, take what you can have." Sari rose on her toes, her lips inches from his. "Take now. Take this. Take me." "Sari." Her name came out broken. She kissed him. His mouth was cold against hers, tasting faintly of her own blood. For a heartbeat he stayed frozen, unresponsive. Then his control shattered, and he kissed her back with 600 years of loneliness and longing pouring through the contact. It was not gentle. It was desperate and hungry and fierce, a collision more than a caress. His arms came around her, pulling her tight against his body, and she felt the supernatural strength in him, barely leashed. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, or she was. At least, Emrys looked shaken, his careful composure completely destroyed. "We cannot do this," he said. "We just did." "Ciri, I love you." The words came out clear and certain. "I love you, Emrys. I love your son. I love this broken, beautiful castle. I love the way you sing to Idris in dead languages. I love your honor and your restraint and even your fear. I love all of it. All of you." He stared at her as though she had struck him. "You should not. And yet I do." She stepped back, giving him space. "I am not asking you to love me in return. I am not asking for promises or forever. I am simply telling you the truth. You deserve to know. The truth." He laughed a ragged, desperate sound. "The truth is that I have loved you since the third night you sang to my son. Since I watched you gentle his terror with nothing but your voice and your courage. Since you walked into the great hall and faced down 3 hostile vampires without flinching. I have loved you and feared that love in equal measure, because I know how this story ends. Then we write a different ending." Ciri held out her hand. "Together." Emrys looked at her offered hand for a long moment. Then slowly, he took it. "I do not know how to do this," he admitted. "I have not courted anyone in a century, and never someone so precious. Then we learn together." She squeezed his hand. "One night at a time." He pulled her close again, resting his forehead against hers. "One night at a time," he echoed. "I can manage that." They stood like that until dawn threatened the horizon. Then Emrys walked her through the hidden paths to the forest edge, his hand never leaving hers. "Be safe," he said at the path's beginning. "Return tonight." "I will." She kissed him once more, brief and sweet. "I always return." She felt his eyes on her as she walked away, felt the weight of his love and fear following her through the pre-dawn light. Behind her, the castle waited. Within it, a child slept peacefully, and a vampire dared to hope for happiness. And Ciri carried all of it in her heart like a candle flame, fragile, precious, refusing to be extinguished. Chapter 8. The Blood Promise. The council returned on a night when frost silvered the castle stones. Ciri was singing to Idris when she heard Emrys's snarl of rage echo through the corridors. The child's eyes snapped open, terror flooding his features. He grabbed her hand, writing frantically with his free one. "They're back." "Stay here," Ciri commanded. "Lock the door behind me." She ran toward the great hall, her heart hammering. Voices rose in argument, Emrys's controlled fury against multiple others. She burst through the doorway to find 5 vampires this time, not 3. The original trio stood flanked by 2 newcomers, an ancient male with white hair and eyes like winter, and a young female whose beauty was so perfect it seemed artificial. All 5 turned to stare at Ciri's entrance. "The mortal appears," the white-haired vampire said. His voice was cultured, British, old as empires. "Convenient. I wished to meet her. Lord Anurin." Emrys moved between Ciri and the newcomers. "This is a private residence. You have no authority here." "No? I am head of the council now. My authority extends everywhere our kind dwells." Anurin's gaze fixed on Ciri with predatory intensity. "You are the healer who sings to traumatized children. How? Quaint." "I am Ciri." She kept her voice level despite her fear. "And you are trespassing." Bold words from prey. The beautiful female vampire smiled, fangs gleaming. "I like her, Emrys. So much fire, in such a fragile vessel." "Melusine, enough." Anurin raised a hand. "I did not come for threats. I came to offer a solution." "What solution?" Emrys's voice was knife-edged. "The council remains concerned about mortal entanglement, but we are not unreasonable." Anurin circled Ciri slowly. "You claim she can be trusted. Very well. Prove it. How?" "Blood bond her to you." Silence crashed down. Ciri saw Emrys go rigid, saw something like horror cross his face. "No," he said flatly. "No?" Anurin stopped his circling. "You refuse the one solution that would satisfy the council's concerns?" "I refuse to bind her in such a way, yes. Perhaps the mortal should understand what is being offered before you reject it on her behalf." Anurin turned to Ciri. "A blood bond is a connection created through repeated feeding. Not transformation. You would remain mortal, but the vampire's blood would give you certain benefits. Extended life, increased healing, awareness of your bonded mate's location and emotional state. In return, you would be permanently marked as his. Other vampires would recognize his claim and know harming you would mean war. Sari looked at Emrys. His expression was carefully blank, but she could see the fear beneath it. And the drawbacks? The bond is permanent, Melusine answered when Aneurin did not. You would be tied to Emrys until your death. His emotions would influence yours. His pain would become your pain. And should he die, the breaking of the bond would likely kill you as well. In essence, Aneurin said softly, you would belong to him. Willingly, yes, but completely. She will not be bound, Emrys snarled. I will not make her into property. Then we remove her. Aneurin's pleasantness evaporated. Tonight. Permanently. And we place your son with a family who understands that mortals and immortals do not mix. You dare. I dare because I am protecting our kind. Aneurin's power filled the room, oppressive and absolute. Either she becomes truly yours, bound and marked and belonging, or she dies. Choose, Emrys. Choose now. The ultimatum hung between them. Sari saw Emrys's hands clench, saw the rage and helplessness warring in his expression. Let me choose, she said. All eyes turned to her. This is my life, Sari continued. My choice. Not his to make alone. She looked at Aneurin. You say the bond is permanent, but you do not mention if it requires my consent. It does. Aneurin's eyes narrowed. Both parties must willingly participate in the binding ritual. Force invalidates it. Then I choose yes. Sari, no. Emrys reached for her. She stepped past him, facing the nose, counseled directly. I choose to bind myself to Emrys, not because you force me, but because I want to, because I love him, because I would rather be bound to him than lose him. Do you understand what you are accepting? Melusine asked. You will feel his hunger, his rage, his grief. 600 years of emotion will bleed into you continuously. I understand. You will age more slowly, yes, but you will still age, still die, while he remains eternally young. Aneurin's voice was clinical. You will watch yourself decay while he stays perfect. That is a special kind of torture. I accept it. And if he decides he no longer wants you, if he tires of your mortal limitations, the first male vampire, the one who had threatened her months ago, sneered. The bond does not guarantee affection, only connection. I trust him, Sari said simply, now and always. Emrys made a sound like grief. Sari, please, do not do this for me. Do not sacrifice your freedom. I am not sacrificing it. She turned to face him. I am choosing you. That is not the same thing. He stared at her, and she saw love and terror and helpless fury all tangled in his expression. I do not want to own you. You will not own me. You will be bound to me as much as I am bound to you. She touched his face gently. We will share this. Equally. Together. The mortal speaks sense, Aneurin said. The bond goes both ways. His emotions will bleed into her, but hers into him as well. Her mortality will remind him constantly of her fragility. Her life will become his to protect. He paused. It is not ownership, Emrys. It is partnership. Emrys closed his eyes. And if I hurt her? If the bond amplifies my nature and makes me more possessive, more dangerous? Then I will handle it, Sari said firmly. The same way I handle everything else about you, with patience and honesty and love. You have 30 seconds to decide, Aneurin said. Accept the bond or lose her. Choose. Emrys opened his eyes. Red bled into the gray, not hunger but pure emotion. He cupped Sari's face in both hands. If we do this, he said hoarsely, there is no going back. You will be mine, and I will be yours, until death separates us. I will feel every moment of your pain, every fear, every doubt, and you will feel centuries of my damage pouring into you daily. Yes, Sari breathed. All of it. I want all of it. You are insane. Probably. She smiled. Do we have a deal? He kissed her instead of answering, fierce and possessive and desperate. When they broke apart, his decision was written clear in his expression. We accept the council's terms, he told Aneurin. Perform the ritual. Melusine stepped forward, producing a silver knife from her coat. Blood must be shared 3 times over 3 nights. Each exchange deepens the bond until it becomes permanent. Tonight is the first night. She handed the knife to Emrys. He stared at it for a long moment, then cut his palm. Blood welled up, dark and strange. He offered his hand to Sari. Are you certain? One last chance to refuse. Completely certain. He brought his bleeding palm to her lips. Drink. The blood was cold and metallic and wrong. Sari forced herself to swallow. Power hit her like lightning, ancient and vast and absolutely inhuman. She gasped, and Emrys caught her as her knees buckled. Easy, he murmured. It takes a moment to adjust. Then he bent his head to her neck. His fangs pierced her skin, familiar now, almost comfortable. He drank slowly, carefully, and she felt the connection snap into place between them. Not complete yet, but present. A thread of awareness linking their minds. Sari. His voice in her head, wonder and terror mingled. I can feel you. I can feel you too, she thought back. And she could, his love for her, his fear of hurting her, the centuries of loneliness that had preceded her arrival. It was overwhelming and beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Emrys released her neck, licking the wound closed. One binding complete. 2 more to go. The second will occur tomorrow night, Anurin said. The third the night after. Once complete, the bond is permanent and unbreakable. The council will recognize her as your acknowledged consort. Our concerns will be satisfied. And you will leave us in peace? As long as she keeps our secrets, yes. Anurin gestured to the others. We will return tomorrow. They left as quickly as they had come. Sari stood swaying in Emrys's arms, his blood burning through her veins like liquid fire. Idris, she gasped. We need to check on Idris. They found the child huddled in his chamber, his face streaked with tears. But when he saw them together, relief flooded his features. He wrote frantically, Are you okay? Yes, Sari assured him. Everything is fine now. You did the blood thing? The first part, yes. Emrys knelt beside his son. 2 more nights and Sari will be permanently connected to us, to this family. Idris launched himself at Sari, hugging her fierce. She felt his silent sobs against her chest and stroked his hair, letting him cry out his fear. I am not going anywhere, she promised. They cannot take me from you now. Idris pulled back and smiled through his tears. Then he wrote, Good, you belong here. That night, Sari did not return to the village. The bond made her too weak, too dizzy. She slept in one of the guest chambers while Emrys kept vigil, their new connection humming between them like a living thing. She could feel him through it, his relief that she was safe, his anxiety about the coming nights, his deep and abiding love that he had fought against for so long. Sleep, his voice whispered through the bond. I will watch over you. Always, she thought back. Always, he promised. Until the end of time. Sari drifted into sleep, with that promise wrapped around her like a blanket, feeling for the first time in her life that she was exactly where she belonged. Chapter 9. The Breaking. The second. Binding occurred as scheduled. Sari drank Emrys's blood and felt the connection strengthen, felt his emotions becoming clearer in her mind. The third binding happened the following night, and when it was complete, she gasped as the bond locked into place, permanent, unbreakable, absolute. She could feel him now even when he was rooms away, could sense his location, his mood, his needs, and he could sense hers. It was intimate in a way she had not expected, vulnerable and exposing and beautiful. You are mine now, Emrys said that night, his arms around her in the library. Truly mine. And you are truly mine, Sari replied. The bond goes both ways. He kissed her temple. I will spend eternity making certain you never regret this choice. She thought he meant it, believed he meant it. She did not realize how wrong she was until the night everything shattered. It started with Tegwin. Sari had continued to visit the village occasionally, maintaining her cover story of employment. But her neighbor was growing suspicious. Too many questions. Too much concern. You look different, Tegwin said one afternoon, studying Sari's face. Your skin is clearer. Your hair shinier. It is as though you are aging backward. Nonsense. But Sari's hand went to her throat, where Emrys's most recent bite was hidden beneath her collar. I am simply well-fed and properly rested, and pale as death, and cold to the touch. Tegwin grabbed Sari's hand, recoiling at its temperature. What has happened to you? Nothing. I am fine. You are lying. Tegwin's eyes filled with tears. Sari, please, tell me the truth. Are you in danger? Is this employer hurting you? No, of course not. I am perfectly safe. Then why do you look like a corpse? Why can I barely feel your pulse? Tegwin's voice rose. Why do you smell like blood and old stone? Sari pulled her hand back. You are imagining things. Am I? Or are you involved in something terrible? Tegwin stepped back. The castle. You are going to the cursed castle, are you not? Despite all the warnings, despite knowing what lives there. Tegwin vampire. The word came out as accusation. You are with the vampire lord. You have let him feed on you. You are becoming his thrall. That is not. But the denial died on Ceri's lips, because in a sense, Tegwin was right. The bond made her Emrys's in ways she could not explain. I am going to the priest, Tegwin said, backing toward the door. He needs to know. The village needs to know. Before you bring that monster down on all of us. Please do not. Ceri reached for her. You do not understand. I understand enough. You have betrayed us, Ceri. Betrayed everything human for the sake of a demon's affection. Tegwin's voice broke. I thought you were my friend. I am your friend. Friends do not consort with monsters. Friends do not endanger their neighbors for selfish pleasure. Tegwin opened the door. Goodbye, Ceri. I hope whatever he gave you was worth the cost. She left. And Ceri knew with cold certainty that everything was about to fall apart. She ran to the castle, using the hidden paths, arriving breathless and terrified. Emrys sensed her panic through the bond and met her at the door. What happened? Tegwin knows. She is going to the priest. They will come for us. His face went deadly calm. Then we leave. Tonight, I will take you and Idris somewhere safe. And abandon everything? Your home? Your territory? To protect you? Yes. He cupped her face. Nothing else matters, Ceri. Only you and Idris. Only our survival. But shouts rose from the forest. Torchlight flickered between trees. The village was coming faster than she had anticipated, faster than should have been possible. They were already prepared. Emrys breathed. Tegwin must have told the priest weeks ago. They have been planning this. Ceri felt cold dread settle in her stomach. How many? 20, perhaps 30. Emrys's eyes bled red. Armed, with silver and stakes. They mean to destroy us. Then we fight. No. He grabbed her shoulders. You run. You take Idris through the underground passages to the forest's far side. There is a safe house 3 miles north, abandoned monastery, warded against tracking. Wait there. I will come for you. I will not leave you to face them alone. You are bonded to me now. If I die, the bond's breaking will kill you. His grip tightened. Please, Ceri. I cannot fight properly if I am worried about protecting you. I need you safe. I need you to protect Idris. The logic was sound even as it tore at her heart. Through the bond, she felt his terror not for himself, but for her and his son. Come back to us, she whispered. Always. He kissed her once desperately. Now go. She ran. Through corridors, downstairs she had never seen before, into passages carved from living rock. Idris was waiting in his chamber, already dressed for travel. He must have sensed the danger through his father's emotions. Where is father? He wrote frantically. Buying us time. Ceri grabbed his hand. We must hurry. They ran through the underground, following Emrys's mental directions through the bond. Behind them, she heard shouting, screaming, the clash of weapons. Through the bond, she felt Emrys's rage and fear and grim determination. The passage opened into forest 1/2 mile from the castle. Ceri pulled Idris into the darkness, moving as quietly as possible. Behind them, flames rose, the villagers were burning the castle. Father! Idris's silent scream echoed through Ceri's mind. He will survive, she tried to reassure him. But through the bond, she felt Emrys's pain spike, felt silver pierce his flesh, felt his strength falter. No, she breathed. No, no, no. She wanted to turn back, wanted to run to him. But Idris's hand in hers, his terrified face, kept her moving forward. She had to protect the child, had to honor Emrys's sacrifice. They reached the monastery as dawn, threatened the horizon. The building was ancient, crumbling, but the wards held. Ceri could feel them, a thrumming protection that would hide them from mortal and immortal eyes alike. Idris collapsed inside, sobbing soundlessly. Ceri held him, feeling her own tears fall. Through the bond, Emrys's presence had dimmed to almost nothing. He was hurt, badly hurt, maybe dying. Please, she sent through the bond. Please hold on. Please come back to us. No answer, only pain and darkness and fading. The sun rose. Ceri sat with Idris in the ruined monastery, waiting. The bond thrummed weakly, barely there. She clung to it like a lifeline, refusing to believe Emrys was gone. Hours passed. The sun climbed, peaked, began to descend. Still no word. Still no sense of him beyond that faint, thready connection. Then, as twilight fell, she felt it a surge of awareness. Movement. He was alive. He was coming. She stood, hope blazing in her chest. He is alive, Idris. Your father is alive. Idris looked up, his tear-stained face transforming with desperate hope. Footsteps outside. Sari ran to the door, flinging it open. Emrys stood in the doorway. Blood covered him, his clothes torn and burned. A stake protruded from his shoulder. His left arm hung useless. But he was alive. Sari, he gasped, and collapsed forward. She caught him, barely. And together with Idris, they dragged him inside. Sari's healer instincts kicked in, assessing wounds with practiced efficiency. The stake had missed his heart by inches. Silver burns covered his arms and legs. He had lost massive amounts of blood. I need supplies, she told Idris. Search the monastery. Find anything cloth, water, anything we can use. Idris ran. Sari carefully removed the stake, wincing as Emrys screamed. Through the bond, his agony flooded into her, and she had to steel herself against it. Stay with me, she commanded. You do not get to die. Not now. Not after everything. The village, he rasped. They burned. Everything. The castle is gone. I do not care about the castle. I care about you. She pressed cloth against the worst wounds, trying to staunch the bleeding. How many did you have to? 5 dead. I did not want to kill them, but they gave me no choice. His eyes, gray now, found hers. I am sorry. I failed to protect our home. You protected us. That is what matters. Idris returned with supplies. Dusty blankets, a bucket of water from a well, old bandages. Together, they cleaned and bound Emrys's wounds. By the time they finished, he looked marginally less like a corpse. I need blood, he whispered, to heal properly, but I am too weak to hunt. Then take mine, Sari offered her wrist. No, you are already weak from the bond. Taking more could kill you. Then we find another way? She looked around the monastery. There must be animals nearby. Rabbits, deer, something. Animal blood is weak, not enough to heal these wounds. Then I will go to the next village. Trade for blood. Sari stood, determined. There must be butchers, someone who slaughters animals. I can buy fresh blood. Too dangerous. The villagers will be searching for us. Then what do you suggest? Frustration sharpened her voice. Lie here and slowly heal over months? We do not have months. The council will sense your weakness. They will come. Emrys closed his eyes. Then we pray the council feels merciful. They were not. Lord Anurin arrived 3 nights later with his full contingent. Sari and Idris had managed to help Emrys heal enough to stand, but he was still weak, still wounded. So, Anurin said, surveying the ruined monastery, the mortal village rose against you. How? Predictable. They have been dealt with, Emrys said coldly. Those responsible are dead, and your castle is ash, your territory compromised. Anurin circled them. The council is concerned, Emrys. This incident proves our fears were justified. Mortal entanglement brings only destruction. The entanglement saved my son, Emrys countered. Sari's presence has healed him. That alone justifies everything. Does it? Anurin looked at Sari. Tell me, mortal, was it worth it? Your home destroyed, your neighbors dead, your life shattered. Was easing a vampire child's trauma worth all that? Sari met his gaze steadily. Yes. Interesting. He turned to Melusine. Your assessment? The beautiful vampire studied Sari with clinical interest. She is bonded fully. I can sense it. She would die for him, for the child. Her loyalty is absolute. Loyalty under duress is meaningless. This is not duress. This is love. Melusine's tone was almost envious. She chose this freely. The bond only strengthened what was already there. Anurin was silent for a long moment. Then, very well. The council will allow you to remain together, but you cannot stay in these lands. The mortal village will hunt you endlessly. You must relocate. Where? Emrys demanded. There is. Territory in Scotland. Remote. Mountainous. A castle has stood empty for 50 years. Its previous occupant was destroyed by hunters. You may claim it, if you wish. Scotland. Emrys looked at Sari. Through the bond, she felt his exhaustion, his reluctance to start over, his fear that she would refuse to follow him so far from everything she knew. Scotland sounds perfect, she said firmly. When do we leave? As soon as Emrys can travel. Anurin gestured to his companions. We will provide transport, protection during the journey. Consider it. Reparation for our handling of this situation. How generous, Emrys said dryly. Do not mistake this for kindness. We simply do not wish to deal with more dead mortals. Anurin moved toward the door. Prepare yourselves. We leave in 3 nights. After they left, Emrys pulled Sari close. You do not have to come. I can send you back to another village. Give you gold to start over. I am going where you go. She cut him off. We are bonded, remember? Where you are, I am. That was the deal. Even if it means leaving Wales? Everything you have ever known? Everything I have ever known includes death and loss and loneliness. She cupped his face. You and Idris are the first real family I have had since my mother died. I am not giving that up for geography. Idris wrote on his ever-present parchment. We stay together, always. Emrys pulled them both close, his arms encircling them. Through the bond, Sari felt his love vast and deep and tinged with guilt. I am sorry, he whispered. Sorry for everything this has cost you. Stop apologizing for loving us, Sari replied. Start believing you deserve happiness. 3 nights later, they left Wales in a council-provided carriage. Sari watched her homeland disappear into mist and distance, feeling no regret, only anticipation. She was going toward something, not away from it, toward family, toward love, toward a future she had never imagined possible. And if that future was strange and dangerous and impossible, well, she had never been very good at choosing the safe path. Why start now? Chapter 10. New Foundations. The Scottish castle was larger than the Welsh one, though more austere. Stone walls thick enough to withstand siege, windows narrow and defensible, towers that scraped the gray sky. It sat atop a cliff overlooking a loch, isolated and imposing. It is perfect, Sari said, staring up at the fortress. Emrys looked at her as though she had gone mad. It is a ruin. It is a home waiting to be made. She squeezed his hand. Come on, let us explore. They spent weeks cleaning, repairing, making the castle livable. The council had provided funds, guilt, money. Emrys called it, and they used it to hire mortal workers from the nearest village. Sari supervised during daylight hours while Emrys and Idris slept. By night, the 3 of them worked together, the bond between Sari and Emrys humming contentment. Idris thrived in the new environment. He explored every room, every passage, mapping the castle with childish thoroughness. And one evening, 6 weeks after their arrival, he did something miraculous. Sari was singing him to sleep when she heard it faint, hesitant, but unmistakable, a voice joining hers. Idris's voice. She stopped singing, tears flooding her eyes. Idris looked at her, his own eyes wide with shock. Then he smiled and kept singing the lullaby she had taught him that first night, his voice thin and rusty but beautiful. Emrys appeared in the doorway, shock written across his face. Idris, he breathed. The boy turned to his father and spoke his first words in a century. Hello, father. Emrys crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled his son into his arms, sobbing openly. Sari watched them, her heart so full it ached. Later, after Idris finally fell into peaceful sleep, Emrys found Sari on the castle battlements. She stood looking out over the loch, moonlight silvering the water. Thank you, he said quietly, coming to stand beside her. For everything you have given us. I gave you nothing you did not already possess. Idris's voice was always there. He simply needed to feel safe enough to use it. He feels safe because of you. Emrys pulled her back against his chest, his arms wrapping around her waist. We both do. Sari leaned into him, feeling the bond pulse with shared contentment. I am happy here, happier than I have ever been. Even though you have lost everything, your home, your work, your people. I lost nothing that mattered. I gained everything that does. She turned in his arms to face him. Emrys, stop waiting for me to regret this. I will not. Not today, not tomorrow, not 50 years from now when I am old and you are still young. 50 years. He touched her face wonderingly. The bond will give you more than that. A century, perhaps. maybe 2. Then we will have a century together. That is more than most people get. It will never be enough." His voice roughened. "I want forever with you. Want to watch you grow old, yes, but slowly. Want decades upon decades of this of us. Want to hear Idris call you mother. Want to build something lasting. We are building something lasting." She kissed him softly. "This, us, our strange little family, that will outlast stone and memory both." He kissed her back, deeper this time, and she felt the bond ignite between them, desire and love and gratitude all tangled together. "Marry me," he said suddenly. Sari blinked. "What?" "Marry me. Not in the mortal way, we cannot, obviously, but in the old ways. The vampire ways. Let me make you my consort formally. Let the world know you belong to me and I to you. I already belong to you. The bond is one thing. Marriage is another." His hands framed her face. "I want to vow myself to you before witnesses. Want to declare my commitment for all my kind to hear. Want you to be mine in every way possible." "Yes," Sari breathed. "Yes, absolutely yes." His smile was blinding. He kissed her again, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around. Through the bond, she felt his joy pure and overwhelming and beautiful. The ceremony took place a month later. Lord Aneurin officiated, his ancient authority lending weight to the vows. The other council members attended, along with a handful of vampires Emrys called friends. Idris stood beside his father as witness, his young face solemn. Sari wore white not for purity, but for new beginnings. Emrys wore black, silver threading through his hair caught up in intricate braids. They stood before the gathered immortals and spoke vows older than Christianity, older than Rome, older than any human civilization. "I bind myself to you," Emrys said, his voice carrying through the great hall. "In blood and spirit and choice, I promise to protect, cherish, and honor you until death claims you and beyond. I promise to love you through your mortal years and into Los, whatever comes after. I am yours, Sari, completely and eternally." "I bind myself to you," Sari responded, her voice steady despite her tears. "In blood and spirit and choice, I promise to stand beside you through centuries of night, to love your son as my own, to be your partner, your equal, your home. I am yours, Emrys, for however long I have." They exchanged blood one final time, not for binding, but for sealing. And when they kissed, the bond between them blazed bright enough that every vampire in the room felt it. "So witnessed," Aneurin intoned. "Emrys and Sari, consort bonded and wed by ancient rite. May your union endure." The gathered vampires echoed, "May it endure." That night, in the privacy of their chambers, Emrys made love to her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. Through the bond, she felt everything he felt: his love, his wonder, his lingering fear that he did not deserve this happiness. "You deserve this," she whispered against his lips. "You deserve joy. You deserve love. Stop fighting it, and just accept. I am trying." He kissed her throat, her shoulder, the scar where he had first fed from her. "I am trying to believe this is real, that you will not vanish like a dream. I am very real." She pulled him closer. "And I am not going anywhere." They fell asleep entwined, the bond wrapping around them like a blanket, two souls woven so tightly together that separation had become impossible. Chapter 11. The Price of Forever. 5 years passed. Sari watched seasons turn, watched the loch freeze and thaw, watched the Scottish Highlands bloom and wither and bloom again. She aged so slowly now that mortals often mistook her for being in her early 20s still, though she was nearly 30. Idris grew not physically, trapped as he was in his child's body, but mentally. His voice strengthened. His confidence bloomed. He wrote constantly, creating stories and poems and histories. He and Sari spent hours together, and she taught him everything she knew about healing, about herbs, about the old Welsh songs her grandmother had taught her. Emrys remained unchanging, perfect, eternal, and Sari was happy, genuinely, deeply happy. But happiness, she was learning, carried its own weight. She noticed it first in small ways. The mortal workers who came to the castle looked at her strangely, whispered that she must bathe in milk to keep her skin so young, that she must have fairy blood to age so slowly. Then came the letter from Wales, from Tegwin. "Sari, I do not know if you will read this. I do not know if you are even still alive. But I must write, must attempt to apologize for what I did. After you fled, after the mob burned the castle, the priest confessed that he had known about the vampire for years, that the church had been planning to eliminate him for decades. He used my fear as a catalyst. He used my concern for you as a weapon. I am sorry. I was frightened and foolish, and I betrayed you. If you are alive, if you ever forgive me, I would like to know you are well. Your friend, if you can still call me that. Tegwin Seri held the letter for a long time, emotions warring within her. Through the bond, Emery sensed her turmoil and came to find her. What is wrong? She handed him the letter. He read it, his expression darkening. She apologizes. How? Convenient. She was manipulated, used. She still betrayed you. His voice was cold. Endangered you. Destroyed our home. She was frightened. Fear makes people do terrible things. Seri took the letter back. I think I want to write back to her. Why? Because forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, not the person who wronged us. She looked at him. Because holding on to anger only hurts us. Because she was my friend once, and that should mean something. Emery studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed. You are far kinder than I am. You are kind. You simply hide it better. She kissed his cheek. I will write. To her. Tell her I am well. Nothing more. As you wish. He hesitated. Seri, there is something I need to tell you. Something the council has suggested. Her stomach tightened. What? They believe we should have another child. A child conceived between us. Silence crashed down. Seri stared at him. That is that even possible? Rarely. Very rarely. But vampires bonded to mortals have managed it perhaps a dozen times in recorded history. He would not meet her eyes. The child would be unusual. Neither fully mortal nor fully immortal. Something between a dhampir. Yes. Seri's mind raced. A child. Their child. The thought was terrifying and wonderful and impossible all at once. What do you want? She asked. I want whatever you want. He finally looked at her. But Seri, you must understand pregnancy for a bonded mortal is dangerous. The child would feed on your blood while in the womb, would drain you constantly. You might not survive the birth, but I might. The odds are poor. 1 in 3 bonded mortal women die in childbirth. Those are better odds than many mortal women face. She touched his face. Emery's, do you want another child? I have Idris. That is enough. That is not what I asked. He closed his eyes. Yes, I want a child with you. Want to see what we could create together, but not at the cost of your life. Never that. Then we try. The decision settled into her bones, certain and clear. We try. And we trust that I am strong enough to survive. Seri, we have been given 5 beautiful years. We have rebuilt our lives. We have made something good here. She pulled him close. Let us add to it. Let us create life, instead of merely surviving. He searched her face for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Very well. We will try. It took 6 months. 6 months of trying, of hoping, of fear and anticipation tangled together. And then one morning, Seri woke feeling different. Feeling full. I think I am pregnant, she told Emery's. He went very still. Through the bond, she felt his terror and joy collide. Are you certain? As certain as I can be. She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. There is life here. I can feel it. He closed his eyes, and tears red and strange slid down his cheeks. A child. Our child. Our child, she confirmed. Idris was thrilled when they told him. He wrote an entire page of excited babbling about being a big brother, about teaching the baby everything he knew, about protecting them always. But as the pregnancy progressed, Seri felt herself weakening. The child, she was certain it was a girl, fed constantly. Fed on her blood, her strength, her very life force. By the 5th month, she could barely stand without assistance. By the 7th, she was bedridden. Emery's was terrified. She felt it through the bond, his fear that she would die, that he would lose her just as he had lost Aylwin. He fed her his blood daily, trying to keep her strong, but it was not enough. The child needed more than vampire blood could provide. You must stop, Idris begged one night, his young face creased with worry. "Tell father to stop the pregnancy. There are ways." "No." Sari's voice was weak but firm. "She lives. I will see this through." "But you might die." "I might." She touched his cheek. "But I might not. Have faith, Idris. I am stronger than I look." She was not certain she believed it, but she repeated it like a prayer nonetheless. The labor came early. 8th month, not 9th. Sari woke in the dead of night with pain tearing through her abdomen. Through the bond, Emrys felt it and came running. "It is time," she gasped. He sent Idris for the midwife, a mortal woman from the village who had been well paid for her discretion and silence. Then he stayed beside Sari, holding her hand, his face white with terror. The labor lasted 12 hours. 12 hours of agony that seemed to stretch into eternity. Sari felt herself slipping, felt her strength draining away with each contraction. Through the bond, Emrys's anguish nearly overwhelmed her. "Stay with me," he begged. "Please, Sari, do not leave me. Do not—" A baby's cry split the air. The midwife held up a squirming, bloody infant. "A girl. You have a daughter." Sari tried to focus, tried to see, but darkness was closing in. She felt Emrys's hand tighten on hers, felt him flooding their bond with his own strength, trying to keep her anchored to life. "Name her," she whispered. "No, you name her. You are not dying. You are going to live to raise her." "Aelwen," Sari breathed. "For your first love, for Idris's mother, let her carry that blessing." "Sari, please." But darkness was rising, consuming her vision, pulling her down. The bond stretched thin, thinner, threatening to snap. She heard Emrys's scream as though from a great distance, then nothing. Chapter 12. Eternal dawn. Sari woke to candlelight, and the sound of a baby crying. She blinked, disoriented. Her body aching but whole. Alive. She was alive. "Sari." Emrys's voice was raw with relief. He leaned over her, his face haggard. "Thank God. Thank every God. You are awake. The baby. She is perfect, healthy, strong." He helped her sit up carefully. "She has been crying for you. Refused to take blood from anyone else." A bassinet sat beside the bed. Sari looked into it and saw a tiny face, red with crying, eyes squeezed shut. Her daughter. Their daughter. "Let me hold her," Sari whispered. Emrys carefully lifted the infant and placed her in Sari's arms. The baby immediately quieted, nuzzling against her mother's chest. Sari felt tears slide down her cheeks. "Hello, little Aelwen," she murmured. "I am your mother, and I am not going anywhere." The baby's eyes opened. They were gray, storm gray, exactly like Emrys's, but around the pupils, a ring of green, Sari's green. "She has both of us in her," Emrys said softly. "Mortal and immortal combined. She will be extraordinary." "She already is." Sari kissed her daughter's forehead. "How long was I unconscious?" 3 days. "You nearly died." The midwife said. "Your heart stopped twice." His voice shook. "I brought you back through the bond, forced my strength into you until your heart started again. I have never been so frightened in 600 years. But I survived. You survived." He knelt beside the bed, taking her free hand. "And I swear to you, I will never put you through that again. No more children. I cannot bear the risk. We will discuss it when I am not barely recovered from childbirth." She smiled at him. "For now, come meet your daughter properly." Idris burst into the room, his face alight with joy. He climbed carefully onto the bed and stared at his new sister with wonder. "She is so small," he whispered. "So perfect." "She is your sister," Sari told him. "Your responsibility to protect and love. Can you do that?" "Always," Idris promised solemnly. "I will teach her everything, tell her stories, keep her safe." He touched Aelwen's tiny hand. "Hello, little sister. I am Idris, and I will never let anything hurt you." Aelwen's small fingers closed around his, and Idris's face transformed with pure delight. That night, after everyone else had left them alone, Emrys lay beside Sari with their daughter sleeping between them. Through the bond, Sari felt his profound contentment, joy laced with lingering fear, but joy nonetheless. "I love you," he said quietly, "more than I have words for. Thank you for giving me this, for giving us this." "I love you too," Sari stroked Aelwen's downy hair. "And I would do it again, despite the pain. despite the risk. All of this is worth everything. Even the danger? Even the blood and the council and the impossibility? Especially those things. She met his eyes. We have created something beautiful from darkness. A family bound not by fate but by choice. That is more miraculous than any magic. You are the miraculous one. He kissed her gently. You took a broken vampire and his traumatized son and made us whole again. Made us a family. Made us believe in hope. We made each other whole. Sari corrected. That is how love works. It is not about one person saving another. It is about two people, or three, or four choosing to build something together. Outside, dawn was breaking. The first light of morning touched the castle's stones, turning them gold and amber. Emrys flinched from the window, even indirect sunlight pained him. But Sari shifted so Aelwyn was bathed in that gentle glow. Look, she whispered. She does not burn. She carries your immortality, but my ability to walk in daylight. The best of both worlds, Emrys said softly. Perhaps that is what hope looks like, something new, born from what seemed impossible. Aelwyn opened her eyes, gray and green both, and looked at her parents with an awareness that seemed far too old for a newborn. Then she smiled, actually smiled, and both Sari and Emrys felt their hearts turn over with love. Welcome to our strange family, little one, Sari murmured. We are mortals and immortals, humans and vampires, daywalkers and night dwellers all tangled together. We are imperfect and impossible and absolutely perfect for each other. And we will protect you, Emrys added. Teach you, love you, give you a life of choice, not curse. Give you the freedom to be whoever you wish to be. Idris appeared in the doorway, clutching a book. Can I read to her? I found a story about brave girls who save kingdoms. I thought she might like it. She would love that, Sari said, shifting to make room for him. Idris climbed onto the bed and opened the book, his young voice filling the chamber with tales of adventure and heroism. Aelwyn watched him with those strange, beautiful eyes, and Emrys held Sari close, the bond between them humming with contentment. This was peace, Sari thought, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of love strong enough to weather any storm. Not perfection, but acceptance of imperfection. Not forever, but enough time to matter. She had been a simple healer in a Welsh village 5 years ago, had heard a child's cry and answered it, had chosen compassion over fear, love over safety, impossible hope over reasonable doubt, and here was the result. A castle filled with laughter, a vampire who had learned to hope again, a traumatized child who had found his voice, and a miracle baby who existed as proof that even the deepest curses could be transformed into blessings. We should sleep, Emrys murmured. Dawn is here, and even I need rest. You sleep, Sari said. I will watch over you all, just for a little while. He kissed her temple and let himself drift, trusting her to keep vigil. Sari sat in the growing light, holding her daughter, watching her husband and stepson sleep. The bond pulsed gently between her and Emrys, a living thing, constant and comforting. She thought of her grandmother's warnings, about the castle. Thought of the girl she had been who had climbed that hill despite every reason to flee. Thought of all the choices that had led her here to this moment, this family, this impossible love. I would do it all again, she whispered to Aelwyn. Every dangerous, terrifying, beautiful moment. Because it led me here, to you, to them, to this. Aelwyn yawned, a tiny sound, and snuggled closer to her mother's warmth. Outside, the sun climbed higher, painting the Scottish Highlands in shades of gold and amber. Inside, a family slept in peace, mortal and immortal, human and vampire, day and night all woven together into something that transcended definition. And in the space between darkness and dawn, where impossible things became real, love endured, just as it always had, just as it always would.